Hola! Bienvenidos al podcast de fútbol de Tifo. Me llamo Joe Devine. Mi complace conta con la presencia de...
I don't know what language that was.
That went German. It sounded German.
Jonathan Mackenzie.
Hello.
Reuben de Pinder.
Hola.
And Tomas Lopez-Menchero.
Hola.
Hola. Bienvenue.
That's the wrong language.
Is that Italian?
No, that's French.
That's French. Bienvenue is French.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. Now, what did we talk about on today's episode? You may have guessed from the incredibly accurate Spanish that I was just speaking. But we talked today about... Also, Steve Hankey's here.
Hola.
Hola. We talked today about a number of things, including... there's more Spanish. Empezamos con Real Madrid. What does that mean?
Empezamos. We began with.
Oh, empecemos. Empecemos con Real Madrid. They've sacked Xabi Alonso. Is that bad?
No, you just got a couple of the vowels wrong. It's fine. Go on.
Let me say it again. We began today's episode with Real Madrid, who, of course, have sacked Xabi Alonso. But why? Tomas spills the publicly available, but behind a paywall, tea. Join the Athletic.
Tea is always behind a paywall, technically, right?
You've got to have tea behind a paywall. Who's getting tea for free?
There's no free tea.
No, because even if you've grown your own tea, that's a resource. Time is money, people. Yeah. Exactly. Well, it is, at least in a capitalist system. Are the Real Madrid Galacticos just a bunch of petulant, silly boys, right, Steve? I didn't say that. I mean, I did say it, but I didn't say it with intent. Or serial winners. We have that debate on the podcast today. What is laissez-faire in Spanish? We find out, we think, we're not certain. And we play The Ring. Very exciting. Tomas had a debut to forget he was very poor at The Ring. What a shame. Will the managerial market explode this summer? Well, David Ornstein predicts so, and we believe that he will be right. We also play a vibes-based game, based on my belief that every footballer and football manager is either one of Real Madrid or Barcelona. And we list a few and have the gang decide who is who. It's purely based on feelings, so John didn't really understand the game. Michael Carrick is the interim Manchester United manager, or head coach, I should say. But will they prosper or falter in the immediate short term immediately? Reuben tells us. And also, is Unai Emery the answer, as John strongly believes? Also, at the end, we talk about how lucky Aston Villa have been this season. And we predict who should be the new Manchester United manager beyond even Unai Emery. Yeah?
Do we need to do a Villa intro?
Should we do a Villa intro?
I think we should do a Villa.
It's only fair. Because otherwise, if you only do Arsenal intros, you could infer that you've got a vendetta against Arsenal.
We did a different one the other day. Who was
did.
That for?
It was for Batman fans. Yeah. Okay, let's do an Aston Villa. You're right. Let's do an Aston Villa intro.
Expected
I won't
intro.
Do a Birmingham accent like I've done in Spanish. That would be a shame.
Coward.
Okay, ready? Hello and welcome to the Tifo Aston Villa podcast. I'm Aston Villa Devine, and today I'm joined by John.
Yes.
Now, you'll hear, Aston Villa fans, that there are some remarks, comments, jokes made in jest about your football team today, right at the end. So if you want, when you hear the first one, it's safe to turn off. You didn't miss anything after that. It is just, even if you look and think, hang on, there's still 15 minutes left. No. It is exclusively jokes about your team. Do we believe the jokes? Well, that's a strange question, isn't it? Do we believe the jokes are real? Do we believe the comments are truthful, John?
I think the whole point of a joke, right, is that there has to be a sort of tension between the reality and what we're saying. And I think if the Villa fans recognise that, they'll see that actually, there is duality of meaning at play here, and that we don't actually think their team are bad. No,
that's true. But we do think they're lucky, right?
That's certainly one way of looking at things. It's not a way that I would look at things. But
is it a bit of a long shot, you might say?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a long shot.
Anyway, a low XG joke.
Yeah.
Aston Villa fans, welcome here. But I would advise, when you hear that first joke, just tune out. Yeah. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Is that right?
Almost, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
Bienvenidos.
Obrigado, papi. Okay, good. Where else to begin, of course, than with Real Madrid? Real Madrid, who have sacked their manager. What a world we live. I mean, an incredible start to 2026. It's only the 14th of January, and everybody's losing their jobs. It's bizarre. Anyway, right, Steve, in this ever-changing world in which we live in, I love it when people write "in which we live in," 2 ins there. It's sometimes nice to have some consistency. So thanks to Real Madrid for staying true to themselves. Again, right, Steve, by dispensing with yet another manager. What a terrific joke. What inspired you to write that kind of joke, Steve? Very interesting. Now, Xabi Alonso, he's gone 8 months, only 8 months into his tenure.
Less than 8 months.
Less than 8 months, Thomas, in what was supposed to be a new project, the dawning of a new age. Well, I don't know if maybe that seems kind of extreme, but it could have been.
Just say, right, Steve, it's fine.
Right,
Get
Steve.
away with it.
Well, I suppose the first question I want to come to you with, Tomas, is, well, let's start with what happened, because I know that there's like a very interesting inside read on The Athletic. There's a fantastic, exciting list. You know when The Athletic has those long reads where there's bullet points at the top?
You know it's going to be good.
Whenever I get to the bullet, I'm like, oh my God, there's bullet points.
My favourite one in this was like, which players supported him and which ones didn't. I was like, that is such good bait.
What a tease.
Let me read.
So who did support him? No, talk us through the bullet points, or just tell us what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly it's the dressing room again, isn't it? It's the kind of Galactico power struggle that I think we've become used to seeing with a couple of other managers. I think in this case, Alonso came in with more pedigree after that great spell in charge of Leverkusen, so we maybe expected more of him. But as I think the main point of that read is basically that these players were kind of used to a different way of doing things under Ancelotti, a bit more of a kind of laissez-faire approach. There's a bit of French for you, you know, just adding in a few languages.
Some French as well as Spanish today. Wow.
It's everything today, everything.
What's laissez-faire in Spanish?
Just
Laissez-faire.
let's say that. But yeah, and they just weren't used to this much more tactical, much more modern approach. Really, like I think you're looking at any Premier League club, and it's probably stuff they've been used to for ages. But Real Madrid operating the way they do in a more old-fashioned way, particularly under President Florentino Perez. Ultimately, it came down to Perez after a poor run of results between November and December. Then Alonso kind of like living, on the line a bit, like very much with the axe hanging over his head. One defeat against Barcelona in the Supercopa final ultimately makes up Perez's mind, it seems. After, to be fair, a lot of months of Alonso living under pressure, the players seemingly not fully respecting him, and the project just not come into fruition, or not even appearing to be anywhere near to what Alonso would have wanted when he first came in.
Well, I think we should elaborate on that as well, because when Xabi Alonso did come in, he came from Bayer Leverkusen, where he had a great system, a lot of young players. It was very clear what kind of coach he was and what he was doing. And I think anyone watching would assume that Real Madrid knew appointing him what they were going to get and what the intention of that would be. I don't think there was any other way of looking at it. It did seem, you alluded to it already throughout his tenure, that there were various issues with players. Maybe there's a push and pull of power there. Can you take us through some of those more notable issues? Because some of them were actually quite difficult to watch, like in highlights form. I felt sorry for him.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was Vinicius's outburst during the Clásico back in October. And I mean, we were saying earlier, the craziest thing about that was when Madrid were 5 points clear at the top of the table. So if you're having those kind of issues when actually everything is going well on the pitch for you, it doesn't bode well for when stuff starts to go wrong in November and December as it did. So basically.
And what happened in that outburst? Because for listeners who haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, so Vinicius is taken off, I think, around the 76th minute. Basically throws his hands up in frustration. Cameras capture him saying, "Oh, it's better if I leave. It's better if I leave the team."
But they're winning at this point as well, right?
Yeah, they're winning, and they see out a 2-1 win. But at the time, I remember thinking, you're a bit worried for Madrid at that point that maybe it all goes south against Barcelona. Luckily, they win, 5 points clear then. But then after that, Vinicius apologizes to the team, but doesn't include Alonso in his apology statement. We reported through my colleague Mario Cortegana after that Vinicius had told Perez that he didn't want to renew while his relationship with Alonso was so strained. So that's the main one. And then the other day, I guess you're kind of referring a bit to the Supercopa final events around that. There's these videos of after Madrid lose to Barca of Alonso encouraging his players to give Barca a guard of honour, as Barca had given them. Mbappe seems to kind of kick off about it or sort of gesture, no, we're not doing that. There's all sorts of like contrasting versions, but I think that does go some way to showing
big time
Alonso's kind of lack of respect for him in the dressing room, really.
For me, watching that clip, it was the body language as well, because Alonso, he sort of, he summons his players over towards the fans. He turns around to walk towards them. And when he looks back, none of them are following him.
Right.
Because Mbappe looks like he's seen it and then said, no, we're going the other way back to the dressing room. And when he sees that, he just turns around, puts his hands in his pockets and follows them.
It's like when you wave at somebody across the street and then realise that they're not actually your friend, and you're like,
you pretend you didn't do it.
It's the Roy Hodgson gif, the famous one where he's like excited about it. The bit where his head goes down, that's basically what Alonso does in the moment.
I love that gif so much.
The craziest thing about all of this for me, though, is that like in that read, it is stated that the hierarchy at Real Madrid brought him in so that he would do this.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted more discipline. They wanted more coherent tactics. And because some like bad habits, quote unquote, had formed. But I guess the culture of the dressing room and just the kind of unavoidable dynamic of extremely well paid players on long contracts versus like as a group of 22 plus versus one person in a coach. And it's like the culture that has created, not only at Real Madrid, but at lots of clubs, the manager is always the one that's easier to get rid of. But they seem to give up on this so early. And given that, like you say, the Vinicius outburst and his kind of ongoing reluctance to kind of work with Alonso is the main issue, with the benefit of hindsight, it seems like maybe they would have been wise to take one of those offers from a Saudi club when they were on the table and prioritise Mbappe, who, according to that brilliant inside read, was one of the players more supportive of Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only players who kind of have a leg to stand on in this are probably Courtois and Mbappe. Other than that, like, they've all underperformed at different times. I'm also reminded of, because we did another on the Athletic FC podcast. Don't know if I can refer to.
Yeah.
Podcast on.
I mean, it's a shit podcast. It's not as good as this one.
Obviously not.
Nowhere near as good.
Obviously not.
Io isn't as good looking as me. But if you want to talk about it, fine.
Yeah,
I don't know why you would.
But Seb Stafford-Bloor made a good point on there.
He's also a prick.
Don't know if you're aware of him, but that like how many of these Madrid players can actually claim to be in the top 10 of their position. I think it's a good point, because actually you look at that Galactico power. Okay, great if you can actually say you're a world star, but apart from Mbappe, Courtois, Gula might be there soon. You know, there's not a huge amount in terms of like quality there at the moment. I mean, Vinicius has been off the boil for ages.
Yeah.
Goal the other day in the Super Cup final was, I think, his first in 16 games for Madrid. Wow. So with that, I just wonder a bit why the Madrid board, and really what I mean there is Florentino Perez, would want to side with that group of players over Alonso. And I think it's a bit more complicated than just the dressing room as well, because actually since Alonso's been under pressure, they have put in better performances. Some of the players have looked a bit more involved. I don't think it's fair to say that Vinicius is like down tools or anything, but clearly that outburst back in October didn't help. It's just bizarre. To me, it seems like no manager is really going to be able to bring Madrid into the 21st century while Perez is in charge. That's what it says to me. Because if Alonso, who's a legendary former player, clearly got a good, if you know, pretty brief coaching resume so far. Yeah. If he comes in and he can't do it, and he's not even doing that badly, right? Then who can? Yeah. Then who can? Because isn't it like? Sorry to say, but it isn't. I think I heard on the aforementioned podcast earlier that he has the same record as Hansi Flick at the moment in terms of wins, draws, and losses. Right. So it's like it's not like it's all going horribly wrong. The football has not been great recently. Sure. I think that is worth pointing out, because I think, and that's on Alonso, that he, I think, basically let go of his convictions. Probably at around the time of the Vinicius outburst, we saw less of the kind of high pressing that characterised his Leverkusen side. It hasn't been great, but I sort of just wish for Madrid's sake that that Alonso had just stuck with it at that point. Just kind of said, you know, batten down the hatches. This is how we're going to do it. If you're not with me, that's fine. We'll, maybe accept an offer for you to leave to Saudi or whatever if you're Vinicius. But unfortunately, I just don't think that's how it works in Madrid. I think the players and Perez ultimately rule the roost.
But surely that change by Alonso was because he felt the pressure to make the change, right? Which, I don't know, it's the weird thing for me is just catching up on a lot of this stuff this morning is there were 14 wins in 15 by the point that outburst happened. So clearly the system is working somehow. Right. And this is like first 15 games of a coach who's come in and tried to impose a tactical approach on a club, right? You would give them a certain amount of leeway to take a little bit of time for that system to get good.
3 years, says Jim Ratcliffe.
Yeah, 3 years. If you're lucky enough to get there, of course.
Yeah.
But it feels in this instance, it's like almost as soon as there was like concrete proof that they could compete at this level playing in this way, and arguably producing like better underlying numbers than they were under Ancelotti at most points in Ancelotti's era. And I know that this always becomes kind of like a which side are you on? And I don't think football is that binary. I think there's things about Ancelotti that were obviously very good and important for coaching. And I think there's things about Alonso that are very good and important for coaching. And probably the balance is what matters the most there. But you've got a very concrete example of like this approach can work. And that seems to be the moment where they almost lose faith in it. And I don't quite understand how that happened. It was almost as though you believe that you can get to a point and you work towards a point, but then as soon as you see that it might work, you lose faith because you think, oh, this is actually going to require an enormous task on our part, right? So like you can talk through all of the good things about, oh yeah, we need to move into the 21st century. We need to impose modern tactics, etc. It's almost like it wasn't until they reached a point where they realized they could actually do this that they were like, actually, do we really want to do this? This is like a big step for us. And it felt like at that final hurdle, they failed. And from there, it's just gone downhill.
It's like when your line manager makes you do something hard and it works and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to do that every time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's almost as though I don't know, and again, this is just me speculating, but it feels as though the players got to that point where they were like, wait a minute, if this works, that whole Galactico image
crumbles.
is going to lose. It's going to go. We're going to lose that sort of romantic image of being able to, just be the guys who turn up and do things. And we're just going to become like every other club. We're going to lose a huge amount of like power and I guess sway. And it almost feels as though they just didn't want to make that like that's how it feels to me. They just didn't want to make that final jump. And from that point onwards, it was like, well, yeah, we'll knock down tools, but we're not going to be committed to the project in kind of the way that we were at the beginning when it seemed to work.
I think from the players' perspective as well, I think there's probably something quite difficult in if you've won 2 Champions Leagues as you have, like Vinicius Jr. at his kind of, still, let's be honest, like sort of early point of his career, then I guess you probably are a bit resistant to change, aren't you? If you know that it's been done a certain way under Ancelotti and that's led to two Champions League titles, I don't know. I can also see that perspective of thinking, actually, this new guy's coming in and he's doing things a totally different way. Why should I be listening to you? Albeit, I think the way, this piece that Mario wrote back in, I think it was October, about the riffs, and there was this source close to a player saying, Alonso thinks he's Pep Guardiola, but for now he's just Xabi Alonso. I mean, that just comes across as so petulant. But at the same time, I can also see that if you've done things one way and someone's telling you to do them a different way, and you experience more success in the previous way, maybe you would be more wedded to that approach as a player.
It's so funny that we're talking about Manchester United and the sort of Manchester United DNA stuff at this point in time as well, because it makes it so clear how hard it is to move beyond a period of success, because you always associate success with like the conditions of the time. And so you're always going to fall back into a sort of conservative way of thinking where you're like, well, why can't we just do what we did back then and it will work out? And it almost feels like Madrid could be in that sort of, they're caught in the gap between this worked in the past, but also we probably need to do something different in the future.
It's my big bugbear with successful people when they get asked like, why are you successful? And then they answer. And I always think, you don't no. You got of course you worked hard. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean you didn't work hard, but that isn't why.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of reasons that are completely out of your control.
And then you try and retrofit it, right? You try and this is what was happening at the time.
Yeah,
and so
your results biased because the reason you think you have an answer is because you're successful. Doesn't mean anything.
Was it a lucky break, a helpful connection? No, it was getting up at 5 a.m. every day. But I feel for Alonso because I think part of the idea of bringing him in was kind of a halfway house between these extreme approaches, right? Where he had, in theory at least, he had the respect and the charisma and the kind of career and the aura to command the dressing room because he's Xabi Alonso and he's charismatic and he's handsome and whatever, and he played for Madrid. But he was also really modern with the tactical approach. And even with all of these problems that we're talking about, he even made concessions with the players, right? He gave them an extra day off because he made them fly to Bilbao a day earlier than they wanted to. And the players were pissed off about it. But then a defeat followed, right? And then people blamed that extra day off. So it's he can't win because he's trying to, I guess, please everybody at once. And then he got stuck between two approaches, I guess.
Yeah, I hope that it makes people realise how good a job Ancelotti did, actually, with a squad that I think we can now see actually has a lot of problems, even just in the football sense of aging defence. Okay, they brought in Howson, Carreras, Alexander-Arnold, but they're all kind of bedding in at different points. Ancelotti wins the Champions League in 2024 with Courtois, Alaba, Militao out for large parts of the season, which is it's an amazing achievement actually in retrospect. And I think that just goes to show how much of the job at Madrid is extra football matters, which I think Alonso will have hated, by the way. I think when he came in, what I remember our reporters saying the same thing, the presses were pretty interesting because for once, actually, the Real Madrid manager was talking about tactics, was talking about 3 at the back versus 4 at the back. And then, ultimately it gets to October, November, and Alonso's answering questions about Vinicius' attitude and what he's doing when he's coming off for a substitution. So I think from that point of view, I agree with you, Reuben. I feel bad for Alonso as well because I think maybe he also underestimated a bit the size of the task. I'm sure he knew what it was to be Real Madrid coach, but maybe he didn't realise just how much rubbish he was going to have to put up with that is totally external to what's going on the pitch. And Ancelotti, for all his faults, and I think that last season was not good under him, he had a way of kind of keeping a lid on that and keeping them succcevel, which for me
just raises his eyebrow and
exactly, everyone just listens.
Isn't part of the issue here though that a lot when Ancelotti has success, people associate it a lot with the man management side of things, but Ancelotti's success in the second stint that he had at Real Madrid was built around Kroos and Modric, right? And essentially the timeline is if you take out the managers, Kroos leaves, Modric gets old, and suddenly they're not able to do as much as they were able to do, right? So I always kind of find it a weird, the balance between people saying, "Oh, take a more laissez-faire approach." Well, sure, you can take a laissez-faire approach if you've got Kroos and Modric in your midfield, where you can just be like, go solve problems for us. The issue now is they don't have that. And so I guess for me, it's kind of of course, you can have that laissez-faire approach when you've got the players who will thrive in a laissez-faire approach. Isn't all of this just premised on the idea that the Madrid ownership realised that they're not going to be able to fall back on that kind of approach all the time? And so they're like, well, we're going to have to try and introduce someone who's going to allow some systemic elements to take up the gap that's missing when those kind of players are gone.
Just to insert here as well, Steve says that laissez-faire in Spanish is déjalo ser.
Very good.
So can you say that, please, when you're responding to John?
Yeah, it's déjalo ser. Obviously.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think the Kroos. I think particularly Kroos. Actually, that's a massive one because his retirement was a big shock, and you're right. He was the glue that kept it all together, really. And it does amaze me a bit that the Madrid board, in everything we've reported, don't really seem to want to buy that kind of organising midfielder.
Wasn't that one of Xavi and his staff's complaints they wanted a player like that?
So maybe it's a different story. I don't know who they would have brought in who would have, because who is as good as Kroos, basically. But yeah, it could have been a different story.
And then they tried to use Arda Güler in that kind of role, not quite the same, but they kind of moved him inside, right?
Yeah, the Güler thing is interesting because he gives a lot more prominence to Güler, and I thought he looked really good. And then I think particularly in that 5-2 defeat to Atletico, Güler really struggled. Pretty sure one of the penalties he gave away for handball. And, at the weekend against Barca, it's a midfield three of Bellingham, Camavinga, Tchouameni in defence. Who am I missing out? Someone else
Güler,
as well.
or
No, Güler wasn't in the starting lineup, which
Right.
I mean, but that midfield, it's not as technical without Güler, basically. So that's another case of Alonso sort of going back on his principles. I thought that final was so similar to the Copa del Rey final last season, and that's really worrying because it's like what progress has been made if you're effectively like, Madrid were in it but not really in it, and Barca I think very much deserved to win, and yet it was only by a 1-goal margin. It was just the same as that, really.
The other funny thing I think about Alonso is we're talking very much in a kind of binary between like, here's a modern coach who's going to impose structures and tactical ideas on the team versus, Ancelotti, who's a man manager, laissez-faire. And I think that does disservice to both guys probably to an extent. But the funny thing is that part of the reason why Alonso was so hyped was because the approach that he was taking it wasn't just Pep Guardiola football, right? It wasn't just this or the ghost of what people think Pep Guardiola was, this kind of guy who imposes like a very rigid positional structure, and the players aren't allowed to move, and the players can't do anything that they want to do, and everyone talks about freedom and the game belonging to the players. When he was at Leverkusen, Alonso was the guy who they were holding up as like the solution to all of those modern problems, right? The guy who was using some of these positional ideas in order to progress the ball down the field. But when they were in the final third, they were using Florian Wirtz as a between the lines guy to sort of pull structures apart and, doing all of the stuff that the anti-structure guys, or at least the anti-positional play guys, were saying is bad with modern game. And it's almost like Alonso's now gone to Real Madrid and is being held up as well. He's just trying to do what Guardiola was doing the whole time as well.
But that's not quite true.
Well, yeah, it's funny that he's just sort of shifted it in perspective, or at least the perspective has shifted on him from being like the guy who was like moving beyond, like it was almost very cutting edge, moving towards this new style of play. Yeah. And now it hasn't worked out. He's just sort of been thrown in the bin of like, well, if you try and impose structure on players of this caliber, of course you're going to end up with those players looking worse than the sum of their parts.
Well, on that note, can I ask a question? Because it seems like, if we're saying like one of the big inflection points of the season was Vinicius Junior's outburst in October. Vinicius Junior is a Brazilian footballer, comes from Brazil, where the way that the majority of people play football is in a more like player-led way, where problems are solved on the pitch, right? That's like a cultural stereotype, but when you're talking about countries, you can't really talk in any other.
I think they would say that is shifting away because there's more managers trying to impose the European style, right?
But historically speaking, in a time when Vinicius Junior grew up, I'm wondering, I'm trying to play devil's advocate a little bit and think about it from his perspective. Is it different if you are Brazilian, you've grown up in that culture where you play football in that way, you come to Europe, you get to play that sort of style under Carlo Ancelotti, and then someone arrives and starts telling you to do something that you've never done before? Maybe your European colleagues playing around you are somewhat more used to this, but if it's like that, could be, seen as like a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, I think the big thing is pressing right out of possession structure, right? Because I think under Ancelotti, it was always very kind of a basic out of possession structure, and it was like, well, you sit deeper. The defending becomes much more individual, and it's kind of like it's fine because you've got players who can defend well individually. You're going to be quite compact, and then you're opening space up that if you win the ball back, you can attack into. Whereas I think with Alonso, what you're trying to do is actually control the opponent a little bit more, be a bit more proactive, and that requires not only like a lot more energy, but it requires a lot more like mental capacity as well, where you're having to think, right, where am I supposed to be positioned?
Sure.
What's going to trigger my jump? What line am I taking to the ball, etc. We
should caveat this by saying that neither of us are making a value judgment about what is better or worse. I'm sure we have opinions,
exactly,
and neither are we saying that Brazilian footballers have less mental capacity or anything.
Like, look at Rodrigo on the other side, right? I think there's probably.
I'm just preempting the YouTube comments. I can hear people already saying I'm being racist against Brazilians.
My point here is it's just if you're an elite player, part of you just wants to be like, I'm here to score goals.
Sure.
Eden Hazard at Chelsea.
Yeah, why should I be worrying about
You know?
like these? And you know, in the piece from Mario, the long read, it's very clear that one of the things that Alonso compromised on was showing them tactical camera footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think all of that stuff goes towards this idea that the game has become much more complex if you make it that way. And I think a lot of these guys are like, why should we make the game complex? I'm really, really good at these like in possession things. We didn't used to have to do these things before, and we won. So I don't put it down as like an incapacity to do that, but I just think it's very hard to get buy-in when what you're doing before, which feels very fun and relaxed and laid back, suddenly starts feeling like school. Right?
Work harder for the same outcome.
Yeah,
Can I read you a quote from the piece? A second source said Madrid did not have a team interested in training. So, you know,
and that's the reality, right? It's like to coach a team, you have to have the team has
an
to have a
interest in
belief.
training.
Yeah, the team has to believe that training is worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
And if you and I
Steve
think
Hankey's always trying to get us to prepare. And we don't believe it either. Like we're very much a relationist podcast. I would say.
Yeah,
he's always
lots
trying
of chiming in this kind of.
Yeah, you're always trying to impose like positional structures on us, and we're like, Steve, we've been winning for years, man.
It's weird that John doesn't go for it as well, because of all people,
he loves it.
Yeah,
he's lazy. If he was a footballer at heart, he'd do the same thing that these Real Madrid players are doing.
Are you Carlo Ancelotti?
Big time. I'm Carlo. I'm also Xabi Alonso, though, and I'm Pep Guardiola, and I'm Sir Alex Ferguson, and I'm Sir Alf Ramsey as well.
I mean, Vinicius has, as writes Steve, has been playing in Spain for 8 years.
Yeah,
but most of that has been under Carlo, right? Or managers of that ilk, maybe a bit of Zidane as well.
Yeah, there was. Well, he kind of suffered a bit under Zidane, and Ancelotti was the one who sort of breathed life into his career, a bit like as you guys were saying, by telling him, do your thing basically, and don't worry too much about tactical structures. I just think everything you were saying there, John, imagine that at any other club. That's the only thing it comes back to, because at any other club, it's part of a footballer's job to watch tactical analysis, to prepare for the game, right?
To train.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Madrid is just different for better or worse, because obviously they've had amazing success in the 21st century.
They have.
But it's not, is that going to be replicated? I don't know. With Arbeloa now, like, is he the kind of manager who, in a couple of months' time, just like Zidane did in his first spell, is winning the Champions League? Or are Madrid actually hugely outdated and those were flukes? I don't know.
I think it's unhelpful that the biggest success in the 21st century is that period under Zidane, right? That, like, what was it, 2016, 17, 18?
Yeah.
And they won the Champions League like they won it another time as well with somebody else in between. But that team is like such a rare example of having players who are all more or less about 30 years old, who are pretty much the best player in their position in the world.
Yeah.
Like that, it was Keylor Navas, it was Carvajal, Varane, Ramos, Marcelo, Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, Isco, Ronaldo, Benzema. And it's like there is not a flaw, there's not a bad player, there's not a weak link in that team, really.
And yet it happened as a result of a Galacticos transfer policy.
Yeah,
I mean, it did actually happen in reality. And then they won.
But then using that as a benchmark for everything that follows is kind of is really unhelpful, I think, for teams that are never going to be.
And looking at this current squad, right? Exactly what we were saying about like the profile of players, like that. Yeah, you look at that Madrid lineup from the Supercopa, it's just not getting anywhere close to that 3-time winning Champions League team, right?
Yeah,
and that breeds a culture that I think attracts a certain type of player to go to Madrid, like. Players who maybe have their choice of various elite clubs, they want to go to Madrid because they like the glamour, they like the idea of being the star. And then if you go there with that in mind and then get told by a more structural disciplinarian coach, we're going to press, it's like not quite as... It
does colour my opinion of players when they say... So what's the name of the young Bayern striker? Carl.
Leonard Carl.
Yeah, Leonard Carl. I have never watched him play, but by all accounts, he's very good. Very exciting.
Yeah, I guess he's more of a wide player.
More of a wide player. But he came out and said the other day, I think he had to apologise for it the next day, but he said something about how he'd love to join Real Madrid one day. And whenever that happens, whenever I hear a footballer say that, it does. I don't know if it doesn't always necessarily change my opinion of them, but it adds to my opinion of them in one way or another. I think,
It's one of those indicators of personality that doesn't automatically make somebody bad.
Maybe it's not, but I certainly judge them in that way.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's like if you meet somebody and they go to Dubai on holiday, I'm like, probably not my kind of person.
Again, tried Dubai chocolate over the festive period. Overrated.
Yeah, agreed.
I was going to say...
Some people would... This bit's getting cut out, obviously. It's still getting cut out. But,
I thought chocolate would be safe territory with you, but no.
Something got cut. And based on what Reuben said, you can imagine how bad it must have been. It wasn't about that, though.
I was going to say, we've not had a big question yet here.
You love a big question.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, the big question for me here is
for you.
If they brought Ancelotti back with this squad...
You didn't say is twice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do it again.
The big question is
there you go.
that... Yeah.
What is the big question?
The big question is if you brought Ancelotti back with this squad, do we have the faith that he would turn things around and it would be good again, or would it be a situation where it's the same as his last season at the club? And like I have no take on which way that would go.
It's the first one.
No, it's not.
It is.
It goes badly.
They always they always buck
badly.
the trend. Like the way Real Madrid works is that whatever you think is going to happen, the opposite happens. That's how it works.
But he'd have to phone up Tony Kroos and say, "Get those boots from 2013 that you've never changed back on."
That's right.
But I think if you answer the question, it would be worse. Then that's a justification for having tried to do what they did with Alonso,
right?
Which then makes the whole question: well, what is the solution here, right? If the solution is bringing in a modern manager, but that can't work, what do you do? Is it just going to be a period now of
you hire Álvaro Arbeloa because he's a Florentino yes man, right?
Yeah, I guess
I would say big caveat as well. Loads of injuries this season and last season as well, and I don't think that's going to get sorted anytime soon. We've seen like Antonio Pintus, who's kind of Florentino Perez close to Perez, being brought in again as fitness trainer who's going to work closely with the first team. But under him last season, there were loads of injuries as well. That probably also affects Alonso's ability to implement his plan.
They had some rotten luck with ACLs as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because Militao came back from one and then not long afterwards did the other knee.
Yeah.
Alaba was out for ages, which, that doesn't help.
I guess the solution here is just you have to buy Galacticos players again, right? That's the solution here.
If you want to work in this way.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to have the patience to the club's like universe, like fans included, but like hierarchy included. None of them have the patience to have a couple of down years, do they? Like you have to keep winning, and therefore culture change is too long a process to really install.
I think the reality as well is that we're approaching a period where it's just hard to dominate at the elite level. Like I think we're going to see different winners of the Champions League for much more likely going forward. I think we can see, the Premier League's a great example of that, right? We've had City won it 2 years ago, Liverpool won it last year. Looks like Arsenal are going to win it this year.
City won it 4 years in a row, didn't they?
That's true, but I do feel as
Steve
though
Hankey's dancing, and you're making.
We've gone from a period of,
I agree, because it was like a period of dominance to now.
Like we've seen just very minor tweaks to teams being good or bad, right? And I think it's just going to be a bit more chaotic.
What's that, Tomas? You want to play the ring?
I'm well up for it.
Okay, let's play the ring. Yeah. Here's how the ring goes. We play it after an advertisement break. Welcome back to the ring. Here's how the game works, Tomas, okay? We go round in a ring. I'm not included. I'm the judge of the ring. And it's a sort of last person standing affair. As soon as you can't name another person who fits this category, you're out.
The ring is broken.
The ring is broken.
It's a triangular ring.
And then it becomes like
a triangle,
a line, and then it becomes a dot. It's called Ring Line Dot. That's the name of the game.
Great name.
Thanks, man. Okay, and today's topic is teams that have won the English top flight all time, not just the Premier League, all time. I can tell you there are 24 of them, okay?
But football didn't exist before 1992.
Yes, it did, Reuben. Now, if you can't name one, you're out. If you name a wrong team, you're also out. I will be flexible on timing, but there's also a time limit involved. Basically, depends like how boring or quiet you're being. So if you're boring and quiet, I'm going to start counting. If you're interesting and quiet,
1, 2, 3.
Let's play the ring. Are you ready, John?
How many teams?
There's 24 teams all in all. Okay. Like you sound so confident. You're like, yeah, sure. I think I've got 23. Yeah. Okay, Reuben, let's begin with you. Name a team.
Manchester United Football Club.
Yes, Tomas.
Preston North End.
Oh, he's going for it.
It's wonderful. Yes.
Liverpool.
Yes, John.
Manchester City.
Yes, Reuben.
Chelsea.
Yes, Thomas.
Arsenal.
Yes.
Leicester City.
Are
Obviously,
you
that's
checking
correct.
this out?
I'm deleting them as you go
Okay.
so that I can see what's left. Yes.
Blackburn.
Spurs.
Yep.
Let's go with Everton.
Everton, yes. Everton, incidentally, have won it, I believe, 9 times.
Yeah, as Steve holds up 9 fingers through the booth.
Oh, good Lord.
Spurs.
Spurs was just said. You weren't paying attention, Thomas.
Oh.
Do I get another go?
You are out of the game.
Oh.
It's brutal here in the ring. You know, you would think because you're a guest and you're a lovely chap and you know what? You're still out of the game. John, you.
Huddersfield.
Yeah, 3-time winners, Huddersfield.
Was that in the 1920s?
Herbert Chapman.
Yeah,
It
they did
was.
it in 3 consecutive years as well.
Yeah,
Is that right?
between 23 and 26 they did it, yeah.
Can I have Nottingham Forest?
You can have Nottingham
Forest,
Forest.
good shout.
Just the once. Do you know when it was?
Under Clough.
It was 1977, 78. Yeah.
There you go.
Ooh, I want to say Derby with Clough as well. Derby.
You can say Derby, yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
with Clough?
Derby won it in 71, 72, 74, 75.
Based on nothing now, I could just say anyone, couldn't I?
There's quite a lot of teams left.
Aston Villa.
Yes, Aston Villa have won it 7 times.
Nice.
I want to say Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Wolverhampton Wanderers have won it 3 times.
I'm going to say a team that I can't believe John hasn't said.
Oh, yeah.
Leeds United.
Again, Leeds United have won it 3 times. We all know that because we've watched The Damned United.
I actually haven't.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
Bolton Wanderers.
You're out of the game, John. Okay. No, Reuben.
Oh.
Only if you can name one more team do you win. Otherwise, no one wins. Or Thomas
I went
wins.
first, though.
Doesn't matter. I don't care. I make the rules.
You
You should be able to name one of these teams.
I should, yeah, but will I?
There's some big old boys in here.
I know one.
Big old
It's
boys.
too late.
Newcastle United.
Newcastle United have won
yeah.
it 4 times.
There we go.
You could have had Sunderland
Blackpool
as
in them?
well. Blackpool are not in there. The remaining teams are Sheffield Wednesday, Burnley.
Burnley.
Burnley won it in 1920 and 1959-60s. They've won it twice. Portsmouth have won it twice. 48-49, 49-50. They won it twice in a row. Sheffield United have won it once, as have West Bromwich Albion and
I was
Ipswich
gonna say
Town.
West Brom as well.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So
I win.
You win. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Well done, Rubes.
The guy who
Thanks,
said
mate.
football didn't exist before 1992 won the game. Incredible. Thomas, you performed poorly. I'm disappointed in you.
Back
I'm
to the-
disappointed in myself.
Back to the newsroom with you.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Back to Spain. Back to Spanish football.
Feedback to go back with, skills to work on, listening. Okay. Very rude, wasn't it? It's very rude. Right. Let's talk now about what we believe will be a very exciting managerial market upcoming. Now, David Ornstein said on the, as previously mentioned, Athletic FC podcast, which is actually pretty bloody good, he said last week he thinks the managerial market is about to explode. How prescient that man is. Good Lord. I mean, this was before, obviously, Xabi Alonso was fired. Reuben Emery went recently. Enzo Maresca went recently. So there are clubs now that are in various different stages of interim. There will be teams that we know will be looking for new managers in the summer. There are managers in the summer who are currently managing international teams whose contracts either end after the World Cup or who may be tempted to come back to club football. We just don't know. There are a lot of big names and big possibilities on the horizon. It feels very exciting. And we talked about this a little bit on Monday, but I also wonder if, because there's going to be this sort of knee-jerk approach to managerial swapping come the summer, whether it might be enough to tempt other teams that wouldn't ordinarily in such circumstances part with their manager. But if they think that all of the big coaches are going to swap jobs in the summer, do you have a manager who's just slightly underperforming, who maybe it's time for them to move on? Maybe they've reached kind of the end of their tenure. I don't know. It could be the case. Let's start with. We'll go back to Real Madrid. Arbeloa is in place at the moment. Unclear for how long, Tomas?
Yeah, Madrid haven't actually confirmed the statement just said he's been appointed as coach. So whether I guess Madrid maybe don't like the interim title, maybe they just listened to Rafa Benitez at Chelsea saying that it was, degrading to.
He was also
to
essentially
managers.
effectively an interim at Real Madrid
Yeah,
as well.
it's true. Poor guy didn't have much luck. I think Arbeloa surely does stay though until at least the end of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows with Madrid? And then I guess we see if he ends up being a Zidane winning the Champions League 4 months after coming in, then I'm sure they would want to keep him much longer than that. But you can't help but feel that Madrid will also be looking at that managerial market. And as you say, if someone better is sacked or leaves a position elsewhere, are they then thinking, sorry, Alvaro, can you go back to your ambassadorial role and tweeting about Madrid and stuff, and we'll bring in someone else. I don't know.
Well, our name, this is not based on the news. This is just speculation and good fun. Who would work where? Thomas Tuchel will be, in theory, at the end of his England contract, come the end of the World Cup. He seems like, if we're thinking that the jump from Carlo Ancelotti to Xabi Alonso was perhaps too big for Real Madrid to stomach, Thomas Tuchel feels like a pretty happy halfway house between those two names, doesn't he?
Feels like he'll definitely get on with Perez. I can't see any problems there.
Surely he'll want to stay with England after winning the World Cup, though.
That's true. You would assume that he would want to do that, Reuben. But then maybe you want to get out at the top of your game.
Yeah, leave on a high. Yeah, you're right there. He's got a history of, because I thought this as well. I thought that's a good fit because he's kind of that, in theory, that happy medium, but he does have a history of falling out with boards. Yeah. But at least at PSG, like he got them to a Champions League final, which on another day they win, right? True, like if Mbappe. If Mbappe finishes a good chance in the first half and they defend slightly more alertly, then they win that, and he's looked on a bit differently. He's done quite a lot of big jobs. Where he's done PSG, Chelsea,
Bayern.
Dortmund, and Bayern, of course. Yeah, so Real Madrid is one of the last elite clubs for him to tick off, which is part of the problem that Real Madrid have had, right, in hiring managers over the last few years. Why they went back to Carlo. It's because like the quote unquote elite managers like they were traditionally hired just seemingly weren't there. So
there's been an acceleration as well, right? We were talking before about coaches. I mean, I guess England coaches, but those coaches were there for years and years and years, right? You would hire a coach and he would be there for 10 years, whereas now you're lucky to get a season and a half out of a coach. And I think the problem then becomes that you work your way very quickly as an elite side through the available managers, and then you're left with like, well, who do we go for? Like
Chelsea's a great example of that as well, right?
Yeah, and I guess Chelsea now have got to a point where they're bringing through young up and coming coaches in the hope that they'll become like one of the really elite coaches. So.
Should we play a game? This is a fun game. I've just come up with it off the top of my head, right? I believe firmly, and I think everyone will believe, that if you are a football manager or indeed a footballer, you are either Real Madrid or Barcelona. And you're very, very rarely are you both. But spiritually, not to say you would ever get the opportunity to manage either club, but you just know from personal branding that you're one or the other.
I don't know if that's true.
I agree.
I think it's true. I mean, I know it isn't true, but like I think it's close to being true enough.
Do you know what it is?
Do
you know what it is? It's like if it's like being a Ronaldo guy or a Messi guy. Like everyone is one or the other.
Okay, let's play the game. Arne Slot.
I think Barcelona. Barcelona.
John's not so sure.
I think he is Barcelona.
I think he's Real Madrid.
Why?
I think he's because
he's bald.
I don't know. It's a game about feeling, isn't it?
But he's Dutch.
He's Dutch,
which is more Barca.
That's true. That is true. Okay, I'm going to skirt over Pep Guardiola because we all know he's obviously Barcelona. Hansi Flick also. I'm on a list here of managers. Mikel Arteta.
Do you know the problem I'm having here is that I'm translating this into and I don't even really know
which one's which.
I don't even know which one's which.
Very good point, John. Interesting, but also dodgy territory. Let's move back into the Barcelona Real Madrid game.
So you mentioned Arteta, and he played for Barcelona briefly, but for some reason, like he's not Catalan though, is he? He's Basque.
True.
So he doesn't have that side of his Barca identity. Arteta gives me more Real Madrid vibes, personally.
Kind of does.
I agree. I also think stylistically, I'm not sure what he's playing with Arsenal at the moment would be accepted at Barcelona
boring.
in the
it's
same
so bad.
way.
It's defensive. It's stodgy. They're set piece FC, Tomas.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey?
Steve Hankey, for some reason, looks unhappy. It's not a criticism, Steve Hankey. Real Madrid,
they're top
doing very well. Yeah, I'd love,
That would suit, right? As long as they win.
Think so.
They would like, surely Arteta is like Alonso, but to the nth degree. Like, surely
in terms of the control he wants. And...
absolutely. Can you imagine him trying to impose that stuff on
But we're not saying he would be a success. This game isn't would this manager work or not work. It's which one are they? Simone Inzaghi. Is he Barcelona or Real Madrid?
Real Madrid.
There you go.
He's
I was
Italian.
gonna say
You just
Barcelona.
know, weirdly, with a lot of these.
That's the game.
don't know
you just
why,
know,
yeah.
right?
Have Barcelona had an Italian manager? I can't remember one. That's the thing.
Giampiero Gasperini.
Barca. There you go. There's one.
Yeah, Barca.
He's a Barca. See, he's Barca. We can't say.
Is he wedded to a back three? Not really.
He's wedded to intense pressing, so
Okay.
that probably doesn't help.
That rules him out of Real Madrid. Therefore, he's Barcelona.
Here's a really tricky one. I'm not sure that feelings answer this, or maybe they do. Unai Emery.
Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think Real Madrid as well.
You think so?
But like 4 weeks and he's gone.
I feel Barcelona on Emery.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Oliver Glasner.
Madrid, I think.
I think
Weirdly,
it's
but I
Madrid
don't know
as well.
why. I don't know why I'm thinking
It's
that.
because we play 40% of the ball and yeet it
Yeah.
into space, and Barcelona don't do that.
Yeah.
And now the most Real Madrid manager of all time who's never managed Real Madrid, Eddie Howe.
That is not the name I thought you were going to say.
I think that's true.
No, Eddie Howe has.
He's not Barcelona.
No, he's neither.
He's Real Madrid.
He's Atletico Madrid.
As soon as you said all managers of Barcelona or Real Madrid, I immediately thought of Gary O'Neill.
He's just a shit Barcelona manager.
Is he?
Yes.
Great chant.
We haven't said that many Barcelona. I think that's the interesting thing. We haven't
Graham
said
Potter would
that.
be bad Barcelona manager.
Vincent Kompany.
Ooh,
Maybe. Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Pep
right.
school, isn't it?
Obviously. Thiago Motta.
Barca.
Yeah.
Barca.
Ange Postecoglou.
Barca.
Yeah, he
The
has-
Barcaist.
The Barcaist of managers. Brendan Rodgers.
Madrid.
You think so?
I think he would do the sort of bull in the press conferences stuff.
I was going to say
Yeah.
Barca because wasn't he like
His-
an early introducer of like patient possession play with a Swansea team, and that was kind of it.
True.
And like Roberto Martinez preceded him at Swansea,
Mhm.
and that all gives me Barca vibes.
I think you could go either way with Brendan Rodgers.
He's got very sort of managerial Real Madrid tendencies, I feel like.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a Barca coach in the same way. Stylistically, I agree.
His
But,
football
like-
is Barca, but his personality is Real Madrid.
yeah.
Okay, last name. Reuben Amorim.
Madrid, and it goes like horribly wrong.
Yeah,
Horribly wrong.
yeah, definitely.
Feels Barca-y to me, but maybe.
A little bit Barca, a little bit Madrid.
But are we only saying that because Jose Mourinho went to Real Madrid?
Yeah,
instead
possibly.
Yeah.
Could be.
Imagine if he'd gone to Barcelona in 2008 and Guardiola didn't get the job, how different football would be.
Okay, slightly different question then. Who should the next Manchester United manager be? Because I feel as though I don't think this
Roy
is going to
Keane.
be. I don't think this is going to be like the catalyst that necessarily launches the rest of the merry-go-round. But it will certainly be one of the more high-profile appointments. We know Michael Carrick has it at least on an interim basis. But Tomas, in your guts, who should be the next Manchester United manager?
Well, probably not Michael Carrick after him, if that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just because even like reading the long read we did on his appointment, the fact that he seemingly wasn't really even thinking about necessarily getting back into coaching, was already exploring other avenues in football which weren't coaching, would worry me a bit if I was a Manchester United fan. And then longer term than that, I mean, Emery feels like a good fit to me. I'm sure it would go terribly. But that's the thing with United and Madrid. I just don't think... We all thought Alonso was going to be great. Maybe we didn't all think it, but we thought that he'd give it a good go and be given time. And I think United is similar. You're dealing with so much that's not the tactical side of things or the side of things that Emery and Alonso and other managers want to think about, that I think it's impossible to predict. But in my opinion, it could be. I feel like Emery would be a good choice.
John?
I think it's tough, isn't it? Because I feel as though in the past, Man United could just basically pick whoever they wanted and have a good go at them. But if you look at the trajectory over the last few years, it's been that they can't really get that level. So people talking about like Tuchel and Nagelsmann, I think they can give it a good go at getting them, but I don't think it's guaranteed that they'll be able to get those kind of coaches.
Give it the old college try.
Yeah. And again, like Alonso probably feels more Liverpool coded than Man United coded, in which case you're then looking around sort of that lower, maybe just the tier below of those elite coaches. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's hard to know. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
I think you should say a name.
Why?
Because you don't want to. Previously, I wouldn't. If you weren't like this, who you are, I wouldn't force you to do it. But there's something in me that says make him say a name.
Yeah, and that's fair. I also think
Andoni Iraola.
You see, the difficult thing now is that the football is in a weird space as well. And so it feels as though you either gamble on it going a certain way or you hold out and you say, okay, in a few years it's going to swing a little bit back. And then you've got so on the one hand, a coach like Iraola, where you could say, okay, he would have to evolve certain parts of his game, but he's an up-and-coming manager within the sort of sphere that seems to be becoming closer to the tactical meta. Do we take a gamble on him and see what he's doing? I think it would be a really easy porting over, because I think Amorim has been playing very similar football to Andoni Iraola this season. So I think you'd probably get immediate uplift from that. But I guess the other option on the market, who's maybe the other way, is someone like Enzo Maresca. In which case, I would personally think that they would be smarter going for someone like Iraola and seeing how it goes, but with the realization that he doesn't have the weight of evidence behind him to say that he can manage at that level. So it's a gamble either way. One of them is a gamble whether or not a coach can evolve to the sort of level. But if it did, you could maybe have him as a sort of Jurgen Klopp correlate. If you went for Maresca and the game didn't really ever cycle back round to playing that more, I guess, patient positional style, then potentially you wouldn't get the benefit of that. So
the Klopp comparison is an interesting one. There's a clear parallel there in terms of evolution. We're saying Klopp had obviously won a bit more when he took over Liverpool than Iraola has now. I think that I kind of think maybe the Thomas Frank appointment at Spurs is a bit of a warning sign for United now, where previously they might have looked at Glasner, Marco Silva, Iraola, and gone,
or even Frank. They looked at Frank
or Thomas Frank, yeah, and said overachieving with smaller Premier League clubs, knows the league, blah blah blah. Get one of them in, and hopefully they'll replicate that overachievement with better players. But then obviously different expectations. Players used to do a different style. Fans used to do a different style. Fans used to winning more games because they pay loads of money for their tickets, and the entire just more media focus on you. If Thomas Frank's Brentford lost 3 games in a row and then won on TV, nobody would care. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, not bad on their day. Whereas if Spurs lose 3 games in a row and then
lose the next
one on TV, it's a catastrophe. So I think...
Whereas, I also think Unai Emery's Arsenal stint serves the same.
Yeah.
I think for big, boards of big teams looking at him, even now, they'll go, what about Arsenal, though? What happened at Arsenal?
You forced me into saying something about Unai Emery on the podcast, and then Hatchet jobbed me into a video which made it sound like I was pro Emery going to Man United.
I put it at the top of the Athletic as well.
So everyone saw it.
I thought that was funny.
I actually think a lot of my friends sort of contacted me. I'm like, what the hell are you on about?
Yeah. So they should, by the way.
I also kind of feel like Manchester United, yeah, sure, of course, Unai Emery going to Manchester United isn't the ideal.
Here he comes, Reuben.
Man United fans aren't sitting there being like, oh, I'd really like Unai Emery to sort of change get Man United back to the top level. But I do feel as though he would, if you want to go a certain route, I think he would be a good stepping stone coach.
Now, bear in mind, this is going at the top of the Athletic. So whatever you say, it's going to live there.
This is just a thought experiment with me. I'm thinking off the top of my head.
No, it's gone.
But no, I think that we talked about this in that video, but essentially he's a details coach. And okay, the issues that I have with Emery is that sometimes it feels as though he is a bit too one-dimensional. He coaches his way and it's there. And part of the reason why Villa have been sort of up and down in the last 2 years or so is because I think that some teams are very good at. I think we've even seen it this season. Teams know how his side are going to play, and they can find ways of mitigating that. And they've found ways of counter mitigating that this season. Yeah. But I think that the details are there, right? They're going to do deep build up. They're going to be very structured in their build up and have consistent, sustained balls progression.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have issues breaking down low blocks. Maybe they'll have issues if teams find ways of stopping the channels they progress the balls through. Yeah. But at the very least, what you're getting a coach who is very good at coaching, at improving the level of the players who are there, and raising the profile and just preparing them for any tactical coach to come in next, so that you can then impose a different tactical system. But the players are ready to accept okay, well, we used to do this with Unai. we're doing a different tactical approach now, but I can understand how it fits. I understand how tactical systems work. He's a details guy, and I think that's kind of what Man United have been missing. Although I do think that Amorim is probably a details guy as well, decent coach.
I think so.
So again, I think, and Amorim wasn't able to coach those players to play the kind of build-up that he wanted, and so this season they've been a bit more direct. But I think with Emery, if you look at the players that he's worked with in that Villa team to get them doing pretty good deep build-up, sustainable ball progression, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
In the immediate short term as well. I didn't need to say that. In the short term as well, I think.
What about the long term, short term?
Well,
big question is
there's a personnel fit as well, because like Emery doesn't really use wingers at Villa. He uses his fullbacks for width, and the wingers are basically tens. Like Rodgers and McGinn play on the left and right a lot. And United now don't really have any wingers because they got rid of them to suit a system that didn't have them. So in the short term, that could also maybe be a decent fit.
In the immediate short term.
In the immediate short term. But then it depends really what the next manager wants to do, because you can just buy a left winger and they'll be all right.
I would say as well, I think the big concern for Manchester United, if they were going to appoint Unai Emery, would be could they possibly get as incredibly lucky as Aston Villa? You know, that's the real thing, isn't it? Like, because Man United don't seem like a very lucky team, do they? Whereas Aston Villa, as we know, because John's told us many times, are one of the luckiest overachieving teams. Don't deserve it.
United were lucky in the 90s.
They were lucky they were lucky
they
in the
could
90s.
just play until they scored.
Arsenal about to get lucky this season. Well, who else can we get? Real Madrid,
constantly lucky.
Liverpool were lucky to win the league last season.
Liverpool weren't lucky.
I think that's
no,
clear.
Liverpool weren't lucky. Arne Slot was lucky that Liverpool won the league last season.
The main thing actually is, can you get him out of Aston Villa? Would he want the job?
Right. You've got such a strong vein of luck. Do you want to leave that behind? Like, you know,
if Villa finish
gambler's fallacy.
If Villa finish second or third and United finish seventh,
still a bigger club.
Yeah,
I think that,
but Villa would be in the Champions League, and Man United is such a poison chalice. He probably would be.
He's not going to have the power he has at Villa, right? With Wilcox and Ratcliffe, I don't know.
But a smaller amount of power at a far larger team.
But he'll have money to spend, right? That's the difference, right? Isn't that because like it hasn't?
The issue for Aston Villa, John. I agree.
No, my point
PSR
is my point is that Villa haven't been able to extricate themselves from that PSR tension, and Manchester United
they haven't been lucky.
Manchester United won, like they finished 15th last season. They didn't win anything, and they still managed to be able to spend upwards of 200 million in the market. Right? That's probably tempting to some coaches, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I've just got the vision of illustrator Harry, who's an Aston Villa fan, who works with us in my head. They have been incredibly lucky, haven't they?
I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'm in big trouble.